one of the things which I would like to bring in is maybe a little bit of discussion about space and geography, in the sense that what I was being a believer, and I think what TA21 has done since the very beginning, is by not defining an institution through its locality to one home space. Most of the institutions are defined. The Tate is in London, so it's a British institution. The Kunsthistorische Museum is in Vienna, and it's an Austrian institution. So institutions were always sort of the transporters of a certain national idea, and obviously with that, many other things that come with sort of the national representative narrative. So what if an institution does not understand itself as being bound to a locality, but be open to choose or interact with many localities around the world? Obviously that seems to be a very noble idea, sort of based on economy and things that are happening anyway in the world. But in the art world, it's still a very, debated and not very much used concept. So I personally believe that for TA21 to choose Iceland as being one of its very strong fundamental locations, but without any sort of national definitions behind, but just purely because of its sort of dedication to that specific place and being able to sort of work and connect and draw energies from that place, and then maybe, 10 years down the line, choose another location and any other place. This mobility is something that I find extremely interesting and extremely important. Again, speaking about all these other models and biennales and so on that we've been, looking at, which were in the art world, the models that we have used to try to do this kind of global connection between nations and people and contexts and discourses. So for one, this is something that I'm extremely excited, because I always thought that that's a great privilege. And it's, I think once institutions start doing these kind of interactions and collaborations more intensely, I think it will radically change the scenario of the art field.
I find it interesting when you talk about like this kind of movability, like move. I remember when we kind of lost Keeper Back, the big factory house, because we had to establish such a good network, and people, liked each other and loved to work to each other. Now we were just back to 0.0, like spreading around. So we had this idea and discussion, we call it the gypsy train, and just to get some buses or whatever, and tour Europe, kind of like a walk band, but invite everyone who would meet there, who would be interested, and people could jump in the train and jump out when they wanted. And it's still stuck in my head. So I think it's interesting, this, if it's a structure for 10 years, how else it can move around.
So you're of course attracted to Iceland, not just because it's a beautiful island with interesting light. It's something with the artistic energy that makes this all of this happen. I'm sure it started with specific artists, but then at some point you get to know the whole situation. Is there a risk that your love of this thing is actually kind of that you cannibalize the energy there and just take it into? What could be the problems? I'm just thinking, a very powerful player comes from the outside. There is already a living art museum. There are great collectives and others, and then you will add something. You will highlight something. You will give new possibilities to all these things. But where could there be? I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but what could be problems to think about? What's the most important to make it as productive and generous as possible?
Well, I think obviously, I'm concerned about the sense that we might overwhelm. But on the other hand, I think TA21 is actually a very small organisation. We run a relatively modest office in Vienna, where our reputation kind of precedes us because of the kind of commissions that we've done over the years and the co-productions, and we've been dedicated to being very interdisciplinary. We started off with art and architecture with that wonderful pavilion that we did with David A.J. and Oliver Lyson in Venice about, 4 years ago now? Yeah. Thank you. we've been part of an ongoing dialogue with Hans Ulrich that started a couple of years ago when Oliver had the pavilion at the Serpentine, which was dedicated that year to experiments. And I think that if you do an experiment, what you can do is you try to put different ingredients together into a very controlled circumstance where you can take away or add another element of that experiment. But the bottom line is you never know and you never guarantee the outcome of an experiment. Because as each result appears, you add or take away another ingredient and you try it again. And that is the nature of science and experimentation. And when we started this discourse a couple of years ago about experimenting, I really like this idea of not knowing what the outcome is. That's why I'm not a big in favor of over-curated exhibitions where basically the curators are going to decide exactly what you're looking at and how many works of art and how they're presented and what the catalog looks like. It leaves very little experimentation up to the audience, which is why I think people like biennales and art fairs so much, because they sort of leave a lot up to your own interpretation and your own discourse with art and how far you're prepared to go to explore it. So our action in Iceland is really an experiment, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. But one thing I know, it's temporary. I've announced it from the beginning. It's a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of 20. I think that moving TBA 21 collection over there is a magnet, and it hopefully will bring, and it already did. It started the idea with Dieter's collection, which is even, as I said, I think more significant than moving ours in. And hopefully his will stay and mine might leave and somebody else's collection might come in. So, you know, this idea of temporality is very important to me. And I think that if you take experiments as your way forward, you take risks. And I'm constantly taking risks because I think that, and that's why I love the team that I have at TBA 21, because we all take these risks together. And very often, like with working with Christoph Schlingensief and artists like that, is that you basically hold hands on the edge of a precipice or a cliff, and you dive into the dark together. You do this together with the artist. This is something James Lingwood is sitting here wondering, looking, I mean, Art Angel did that, and in fact, I got seduced by production by a project that they did with Kutluk Ataman here, a Turkish artist who a few years ago was completely unknown. I remember getting the project description, which was about this long. There was quite a hefty price tag attached to being involved in this project in the beginning. And then I went, yeah, this is an interesting Turkish artist. I think we should do this. And it was basically a tremendous leap of faith that they were taking, that we enjoyed jumping in with together. And it's probably one of the most significant and important projects that we've ever done. And Art Angel went further and did an incredible Ronnie Horn museum in a completely remote village in the north of Iceland, which is one of the absolute most important and significant contemporary art venues in Iceland that everybody goes to see. And I think the vision of the London organization doing something like that in Iceland again is a really important model of these type of leaps of faith that we need to have to think out of the box in the art world, because really we are otherwise consistently repeating ourselves and repeating models that are actually failing in front of our eyes and then doing it again and again and again. So my answer to that is that it's an experiment and I don't know what the outcome is.
No, I think there is a great possibility to actually do possible new structure in Iceland, because I mean, we have a lack of history apart from little projects or big projects in little villages like Martin's that have come in from abroad, and with an organization like TBA 21 which works on a similar level. I see artists run institutions in the sense that they take faith in the artist and jump into the deep end of the